Shabbat Shalom, everyone. If you'll gather your candles around, and we'll begin with our candle blessing as we invite Susan Clements to lead us as we begin Shabbat together.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We've increased the light by lighting our Shabbat candles and begun this Shabbat now. This Shabbat is different than many in that we, first of all, want to welcome our friends from House of the Lord and Pastor Brake, who will be a guest speaker in our service this evening. As you join us for this Shabbat, we welcome you into our virtual sanctuary. We're so glad to begin this relationship, which we'll talk about more later in the service. But Shabbat Shalom to you, and thank you for joining us on this evening. Tonight is Social Action Shabbat, a Shabbat we celebrate every year in which we invite our social action leaders to take part in our service, and we remind ourselves that every Shabbat should be Social Action Shabbat. This Shabbat is one in which we hope to set us off for the rest of the year, to remind us of how important this work is, and to remind us of how much we're doing and the great difference it makes in our world. And so we'll begin by inviting Bruce and Susan Zake to lead us in a blessing for social action.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lirdof tzedek.
Praised are you, eternal God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with your mitzvot and commands us to pursue justice.
We look back through our week now, and we take account of the days that we have experienced since last Friday night when we were together. As we turn to page 20 in our prayer books, the words of Lecha Dodi, the words that welcome Shabbat into our sanctuaries and into our homes. During the last verse, we will invite you to rise, turn towards the door of your home, and welcome the presence of Shabbat in.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmianu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemo tifaret v'litchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, kiva orech umiori, uri, shirta beiri, kavod Adonai ala yiknikla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Please rise and face the entrance to your home. Bo v'shalom ateret bala, gam v'simcha uv'sochola, toch emuneh am segula, bo ichala. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat
page 26.
יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא יברח ירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב וימרו. Amen. Yehesh me Rabba Mavarach le'alma me'almaya yitbarach yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yidroma v'yidnasi v'yitadar v'yitali v'yitalav shemei l'kodesh barichu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata da'amira me'alma v'yimeru. Amen.
Please rise, page 28, as we turn to our call to worship, our prayer that invites us to remind ourselves that we're all here together. Page 28, the words of the Baruch Hu. We invite Bruce Folkert and Jim Levin, members of our Social Action Committee, to share prayers with us at this time.
This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, hamariv aravim.
Everlasting love. You offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruchim kivod malchuto leolam va'ed.
You can be seated if you would like. We invite now Elaine Cohen to share a prayer about love and teaching that love to our children.
You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai, your God.
The words we're about to share in this next prayer that we know as Michamocha are the very words of our Torah portion this week. They're the words that we are told the Israelites sang together the very first moment that they experienced freedom, the very first moment that they came to know who they were going to be as an independent, free people out in the wilderness to figure out who they are. I realized a moment ago, as Kathy whispered to me, we didn't tell you who we are. And so I'm Rabbi Josh Brown, rabbi here at Temple Israel for our guests, and I'm joined by Cantor Kathy Fromson, who is our wonderful cantor who sings our prayers and leads us in our worship. And we hope that for those who don't have the prayer book in front of them, that you'll continue to enjoy, and find our service to be prayerful and spiritual for you as we will do our best to explain the different parts, but also to come together as one community on this evening. And so this prayer, the prayer that we read in our sacred text this week, also a prayer we share every week because of its deep importance of what it feels like the moment that you step out of being enslaved and you step into freedom, you turn to God and you say thank you. And that prayer for us is found on page 40 in our prayer books, and it's followed by a prayer for our personal sense of peace as we enter into this evening.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh, nora tehilot osef eleh, malachutecha ra'u anecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam zelianu ve'amaru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Please join us for a prayer for peace. Hashkivenu. This prayer is traditionally said at night. We thank God for laying us down to rest and waking us up in the morning with a fresh breath of air. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'ha'amidenu shamrenu l'chayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shelomecha, fros aleinu sukat shelomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right, O Adonai. Amen. 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 O Adonai.
On page 46 and 47, we turn to our most personal prayers, and we're invited to envision them in the following way. To pray as if everything depended on God, but to act as if everything depends upon us. That, in so few words, is perhaps exactly what tonight is about. We come to pray, to ask God to be a part of healing our world, and we also come to act to make sure that our world can depend on us. We rise now, page 46, as we begin this series of prayers, our Amidah.
Adonai, sifatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo Ve'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Torah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol Atah Rav LaHoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayeh HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Berafech Olim, U'Matir Asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar micha mocha ba'al gevurot umido melech memit umechaye umatmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman ata lahachayot hakol baruch atah Adonai mechaye hakol.
You can be seated if you would like. On this Shabbat, Adonai, we ask you to disturb us, to ruffle us from any complacency in our lives, to make sure that we are dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, the quiet, and to wake us up and shake us from the sweet and sad poignancies rendered by half-forgotten melodies and rubric prayers of yesteryears, to allow us to know that the border of this sanctuary, the border of our homes, is not the border of living, and the walls of your temples are not shelters from the winds of truth, justice, and reality. So we ask you, God, to disturb us, so that your Shabbat is not a day of slumber, so that it becomes a day in which we are stirred and spurred to action. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat, let that be what makes our Shabbat sacred. As we turn to page 60, we share the words of Shalom Rav, our prayer that the most unbelievable, unimaginable, perfect peace find its way into the most disturbed corners of our earth, and that we get to see that in our day. Page 60, Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon L'chol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adon L'chol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. ישראל עמך תשים לעולם, תשים לעולם, תשים לעולם.
Take a moment for our own personal silent prayers.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
Having offered a prayer for peace for our world and peace in our homes, we now turn to those who we know are struggling in this moment, especially those who struggle with illness of mind, of body, of spirit. And we offer this prayer. It's found on page 253 in our prayer book, a prayer for healing. And we invite you, if you would like, to share the names of those who you would like to add to this prayer, those who are in need of that strength, to type that into the chat or to say it out loud in your homes as we make their names a part of our prayers this evening. And we wish for them a refuah shlema, we say in Hebrew, a full sense of becoming their fullest selves. Page 253.
Bisheberach Avotenu Mekor habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We invite Art Krakauer to lead us in a prayer for our country.
O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance, May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and may our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen.
This past year, truly unlike any other. And yet, as we look back, in some ways, it's been more like the years before it than we would want it to be. There's been more hate, more anti-Semitism, more separation, more division, and more uncertainty about how to respond. And so tonight, we begin what we hope is one response. The beginning of our response to get to know each other, these two congregations, a primarily Caucasian congregation and a primarily African American congregation, a Jewish congregation and a Christian congregation, people who may not know each other to come together and try and figure this out one face at a time. And at the head of this effort has been Kathy Baer. She has chaired the Black-Jewish Relations Program, the program that we will join together for the next 4 weeks to engage each other, learn about our shared history, and to learn about our present and hopefully to build a future together. And so it's a great honor to invite Kathy to say a few words before we formally begin our program this evening.
Good evening, everyone, and Shabbat Shalom. I would like to welcome the House of the Lord to our very special Social Action Shabbat, and we're so excited about our shared conversations on Black-Jewish relations. Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel built their relationship on religion, social justice, and wanting to make the world a more peaceful place. This program is about sharing their legacy and moving forward toward a better understanding of our similarities and differences and how we proceed today to positively impact our community. My journey on Black and white relations began last spring when George Floyd was murdered. What I am learning is that in order to make this world a better place, we need to learn together how to build relationships with those who are different from us and yet the same. The sermons you are about to hear from Rabbi Brown and Pastor Brake will begin 4 weeks of learning about our shared legacies and where we go from here. If you haven't signed up for this free program, you can do so right after services. You will then receive an email with the link for the film Shared Legacies, the African American Jewish Civil Rights Alliance. This film is so moving and informational, and it will set the stage for the next 3 Zoom sessions. You will have 72 hours to view the film on your own. Then, on February 4th, from 7 to 8 p.m., you will hear from the amazing woman who wrote, produced, and directed the film, Dr. Sherry Rogers, who will be interviewed by the Akron Urban League and the AJC Cleveland chapter. February 11th, from 7 to 8:15 p.m., will be a program on religion's role in Black-Jewish relations, featuring Rabbi Brown, Rabbi Werber, Pastor Brake, and Pastor Matherson. Our last session on February 18th, from 7 to 8:15 p.m., will be led by our distinguished committee and will focus on sharing our stories and where do we, as a community, go from here. We will divide into small group breakout sessions where we ask you to give us suggestions on moving forward. We are in this together, and the goal is to create opportunities to learn together, grow together, and to find ways to make our world a better place. Won't you please join us?
I'm Rabbi Josh Brown. Again, welcome to our friends from House of the Lord. It is so nice to be able to have you as our guests. This evening, we only wish, of course, that you were here in person. I want to introduce myself, especially to those guests who don't know me. I grew up in Atlanta, which was my great education and entry into having an incredible amount of pride for what happened in the city of my birth in the years prior to my birth. To be from Atlanta means to be proud, incredibly proud of the civil rights journey that the city took, the way in which it led the country, even if it was an example often of how challenging times were. And most importantly, of our favored son, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. from Ebenezer Baptist Church. Growing up in Atlanta was to know the people who flanked his sides in the marches, the Andrew Youngs, the Maynard Jacksons, the John Lewises. These were people we were so proud of. And so as a young Jewish kid in Atlanta, I too was proud of these children of our city who had become great American leaders. Later, I went to Los Angeles for seminary, and for 5 years, I lived in the most diverse city, as it's often referred to in our country, and experienced my most intense years of growth and identity. And when I left Los Angeles after 5 years for my first pulpit in North Carolina, I looked back and I realized I could not name one good friend who was not Jewish. I could not think of somebody who I spent any significant time with who in the most diverse city in our country was just like me. And so if Atlanta taught me to be proud of diversity and of the heroes of civil rights, Los Angeles taught me that this journey is on me, that simply living in a place that's diverse or a place that is proud of its history, that has made progress, does not make you a part of that progress, that we have to do this work. And here we are now. As I reflect on those times and get to know you, at a time when the pressures of the world have been pushing on us to make the walls of our bubbles as hard as steel, to separate from other people because those other people might kill us with the force of their hands or the germs of their body. I believe that this series that we're starting is one step in a great struggle as to how we fight back, by reminding ourselves that separating ourselves from every other person does not ultimately protect us. It just means that we are more willing to be alone in our struggles than we are to solve them. These next 4 weeks for me are the steps out of our fear-filled bubbles. Someone recently shared with me that we should not just honor the legacies of our heroes, we have to extend the legacies of our heroes. And that's what I think we're trying to do. We have to honor Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, as you'll come to know in the Shared Legacies film. But I also hope that the steps we take as two communities coming together do much more than honor. I hope we extend the path that they started walking, because we have not only a shared legacy, we have the opportunity to have a shared future. It's with that in mind that I am so honored to pass this virtual microphone to my new friend, Pastor Brake from House of the Lord, as I invite him to introduce himself to you as well. Pastor Brake.
Good evening to Rabbi Brown and to the whole Temple Israel congregation. It is a privilege and an honor to be able to participate in your social action Shabbat service. On behalf of our founder and preaching pastor, Bishop Joey Johnson, and the entire House of Lord family, it is really an honor for us to be able to come together and begin to talk about shared legacies among Black and Jewish relations. My name is Pastor Darren. I'm one of the pastors here at the House of the Lord. And when Kathy approached me with the idea of putting together this Shared Legacies program, I knew it was something that I needed to be a part of. One, because when I first started pastoring, one of the things I reflected on was what did I want my pastorate to be about when this was all said and done and I retired, and what did I want to be remembered for? And one of the things that floated to the top of my list was I wanted to be known and wanted to be remembered as being a bridge builder. And a lot of the time and energy I've given to that has been just simply among black and white relations. But Kathy introduced me to a whole nother dynamic, which is the black and Jewish relationships. And I have to admit that was not a relationship that I had given much thought to. But after talking with her and this aligning with the core values of who I am, I knew this was something I needed to participate in, not just because it was important, but because it could be a learning experience for me myself as I got to interact with Kathy and got to get to know Rabbi Brown and got to interact with Rabbi Werber, and we would come together and have very real and open conversations and dialogues. And this has really been a blessing to me, and I just know if you stick with this program, if you participate with this program that we've outlined for you, I'm sure that you will come out a little bit different on the other side, and that this will be a blessing to you and to your family. In thinking about the question, what does it mean to lament, and why should we embrace lamenting? I can't help but think about how the black church in particular, we interpreted lamenting, and it can really comes out in the songs of the church, some of the old hymns and the spirituals and that were sung even on the plantation fields of the antebellum South. And when I think about lamenting and what does it mean and why is it important is I think of three words. The three words I think about is reality, grief, and hope. We can't live in denial. We have to be able to face reality. We have to be able to call a thing what it is. And we cannot act like everything is great and everything is coming up roses when that is not the case. Living in denial will not do anything for us, but we must come together and be able to face reality and stare the difficult situation in the face and be able to move forward in a positive way. Grief is the next word that comes to mind, because grief is how you deal with the reality and the hardships and the disappointment and the loss that we are facing right now because of our context, because of the racial injustice, because of the discrimination, because of all of those kind of things that we are dealing with day in and day out within the United States of America. It is so important that we grieve that we are not the connected nation that we once claimed to be. We are not the melting pot. We are more of a salad bowl with a bunch of different ingredients just banging together, but we're not really coming together. We're colliding instead of connecting. And we need to grieve that. We need to face reality. We need to grieve the results of the reality that we are living in, but we have to do that without falling into complete despair. And that's where hope comes in. That's where the hope of our faith comes in. That you can be able to hold within the proper tension. Yes, there is despair on this side. Yes, there is discouragement. But on the other hand, there is a hope that I have, a hope in humanity, a hope that we can be and live up to the true nature that we have inside of us, that we are better than the way we are acting nowadays. And that's what I think lamenting is. It's a way to embrace reality. It's a way to grieve what we're missing and grieve the pain of the reality that we're embracing, but also it's a way to do it and stay hopeful that weeping may endure for the night, but there is joy that comes in the morning. Yes, trouble does not last always. There are times when we will have to go through some stormy days and some dark nights, but trouble does not last always, and that there will be a new day and the sun will come up and we will come out of this better than the way we came in. But we must embrace reality. We must grieve reality, and we must maintain a sense of hope. And that is what I believe lamenting is, and I believe that is so important for us personally, but then also when it comes to the interaction with each other because of our shared legacies, because of our shared experiences with oppression and discrimination and things along those lines. When we can put ourselves in each other's shoes and begin to weep and lament with each other because of the pain of the other person, that is what will really begin to fortify us. That is what will begin to bring us together. And that is where the true conversation, the true dialogue, and where the shared legacies can then become one legacy. not two legacies that are kind of going down the path together, but they can actually become, in some respects, one legacy as we come together and unify with the ability to sit where each other sits, to enter into the pain of the other person, not with judgment, not trying to compare it to our own pain, but simply being a heart with ears, listening, trying to understand, trying to relate, not trying to do anything other than simply be a shoulder to lean on, a shoulder to cry on, and begin to weep and embrace the pain that another human is feeling. When we lament in that way, I believe that is what will begin to bring upon true change, not just in Black and Jewish relationships, but that can be infectious and that can begin to spread throughout this culture altogether. So that's what lamenting means to me. That's what lamenting, I believe, means into the Black church culture, and as well as that is why I believe that lamenting is important for us to practice, because we need to face reality. We need to grieve reality. But we must remain hopeful that this is not the ultimate, this is not the end of things, and that there is more to come.
Thank you, Pastor Brake. You taught us about lamenting as a verb. I want to talk about it as a text, as a person, as a place, a subject. In Judaism, when we hear the word lament, we think of the book from the Bible, Lamentations. And in Hebrew, the name of this book is Eicha. It's a painful word. Even just saying it hurts a little bit. Eicha, a word of crying out. My best translation would be that Eicha is the word that in those moments when life hits you so hard that without thinking or forming a word, your body just shouts out, "Oh Lord, where am I?" If Lamentations was a word, the word is one that comes out of us without thought, of pure emotion and pain, a call to a higher power and to the world to see us in our pain, even if we don't want to be seen, even if being seen is the last thing we want in that moment. We can't help it. Eicha, the word for Lamentations, comes out of us. The poetic verses that follow tell the story of a woman abused, raped, betrayed, and then laughed at by her enemies. If you read the book of Lamentations, you will find that it does not hold back on how bad it can feel to be in this world. One verse reads, "Ensnared like a bird by my enemies without cause, they cut off my life in a pit and threw stones at me. The waters flowed over my head, and I thought I was doomed until I called out your name, God, from the depths of the pit." If Lamentations is a person, it is a person abused and betrayed. But it's also a person who never gives up, who even from the lowest place, the pit, that place that I have been told by so many of you, you have experienced in your life for any number of reasons, that person believes that a godly hand will reach out to her call for help. But the ultimate beauty of the book of Lamentations is that the woman it is talking about is not a person at all. It's a city. Lamentations was written during the most terrible, violent-filled, destructive times in the history of Jerusalem, the sacred city. It talks of a city that has been left by its people. Its opening words, the first verse of the book, say, "The city that was great with people has become like a widow." And so Lamentations is not just a verb, it is a place. It is a city where people are not welcome. A city at the bottom of a pit, whose enemies are cheering in victory. To lament is to be in that city and to cry out as citizens that we need help. To lament means to be in that place. And I don't need to tell you that we have come to know the names of that place in this last year and in the years prior. That place is Pittsburgh and Charleston and Parkland and Ferguson, Poway and Minneapolis, and just weeks ago, our very nation's capital. We know those cities are lamenting. We know that that's what lamenting is. It is that place. And so if the first question was, what does it mean to lament? It means to be in that place, in that pit, where all you can do is cry out for divine help because it looks like there's no clear human answer. Then the why do we do it? Echa, we cry out because if we don't, we will just suffer alone. And the beauty of this cry is that the answer is often not even a word, but a person and a place where we show up. In Jewish tradition, when someone dies, we lament. We don't usually call it that, we call it Shiva. Shiva means that we go to the family's home in the days after the passing. But Jewish tradition tells us that we should not bring flowers and that we should not feel that we have to say anything because perhaps there's nothing we can say and there are no flowers that will make this moment beautiful for that family because they are lamenting. They are in that place. But what can help them is our presence, our being in that space with them to make it a space in which they are not alone, and that being there will give them hope. Lamentations is a place. We go there because if we do not, we will just suffer alone. And that is not where we, nor God, wants us to be.
But what advice do I have for Black and Jewish communities to lament together? I touched on this some in my answer to the previous question, but I can go a little bit further and push this a little bit deeper. I think one thing that Black people need to do is that we need to be open. We need to be open to having deeper relationships with our Jewish brothers and sisters. But on the other side, I think our Jewish brothers and sisters need to understand that we need allies in you. We have been saying the same thing for hundreds of years, and we need people that look like you to also share our stories, to be willing to be allies for us. And I think those two things coming together, that would be one advice I would give that would set a context, that will set the table, if you will, for us to be able to sit down and begin to lament together. Outside of that, it goes back to being a heart with ears for each other. Not trying to compare pain. Everyone's pain is uniquely their own. I cannot compare your oppression to my oppression. I cannot compare your pain to my pain. But what I can do is try to have compassion for you. What I can do is try to enter into the pain that you feel. And what you can do is to do the same for me. And if we come together with that kind of perspective, not trying to cast judgment, not trying to convince, not trying to do anything more than listen and understand. In all our getting, if we can just get some understanding, and that comes by willing to just sit with each other, to hear each other's stories, to begin to engage in relationship with each other. Those are some simple ways. Get into the same spaces with each other. Our lives are so segregated that we need more programs like this, more opportunities like this for us to have more shared spaces. And in those shared spaces, we can begin to interact and dialogue with each other. And I think one thing that we will find out is that we have a lot more in common than we don't have in common. And that there's a lot of life and a lot of our just human experience that we can share with each other. So that is the advice that I would give. And as I bring my remarks to a close, I would say that is my prayer to be the result of this Shared Legacies program. As we move forward over the next 4 weeks or so, and we have amazing programs laid out once a week for everyone to participate in, is that each program that we will begin to see each other a little bit more. With each program that we'll begin to be willing to listen to each other a little bit more. With each program that we'll be willing to embrace each other a little bit more, that we'll be willing to just be quiet and listen to each other a little bit more. So that is some advice that I would give for our Black brothers and sisters, as well as my Jewish brothers and sisters, to come together and begin the process of lamenting. I know it's uncomfortable. A lot of times when someone is crying around another person, we want them to stop. Not so much because that's what's good for them, but because that's what makes us feel better. But if we can push past being uncomfortable, if we can push past not wanting to be in a space where we really don't understand why someone feels the way they feel, but if we can just connect with the fact that another human is hurting, that another human is suffering, that another human is dealing with some tough situations, with some discrimination and things along those lines, that will then begin to make a way for us to begin to lament together and begin to share in each other's struggle and share in each other's pain. And when that happens, there is nothing left but for us to begin to build authentic, deep, true relationships with each other. And that is my prayer, that will be the result of this, and I pray that this service is the catalyst for that taking place. It has been a pleasure to share with you, Rabbi Brown. I look forward to getting to know you more. And when this pandemic is all over, Temple of Israel, I hope to see you in person at some point. And this has been an honor. And on behalf, again, from the House Lord family, we care about you, we love you, and we look forward to embracing you further in this process.
First, I want to thank Pastor Brake for his words. We are always eager to learn from new teachers, and we believe our best teachers become our friends. We look forward to the friendship that we have ahead. And I want to close by sharing the words of an atheist admiring the beauty of a church. I figure it can only add to the diversity of this moment. Alan de Botton wrote that the power of the church is that it marks off a piece of the earth, puts walls up around it, and declares that within their parameters there will reign values utterly unlike those which hold sway in the world beyond, in the offices and gyms and living rooms of the city. For the art gallery legitimates the practice of peering silently at a canvas, and the nightclub of swaying one's hands to a musical score. But a church, a synagogue, a mosque, a house of worship gives us rare permission to lean over and say hello to a stranger without any danger of being thought predatory or insane. We are promised that in these spaces, the love of God and the fellowship of the Spirit belong to all who have assembled. These holy spaces lend their enormous prestige, accrued through age and learning and architectural grandeur, to our shy desire to open ourselves to someone new. Why are we doing what we're doing? We are doing this because the house of the Lord and Temple Israel and all of the houses of worship that we know as our brothers and sisters, this is what we are good at. We know how to treat people like a brother and a sister from within our sanctuaries, how to see the stranger as a face we are eager to greet. This is what churches, synagogues, and mosques were created to do. They are spaces to lament and celebrate, to be different than the outside world, to be holier than the outside world, so that one day when we finish working on the outside world, it will feel like the sanctuaries that we've known our whole lives and that we have called home. I look forward to the day when the seats of this sanctuary are filled with the faces from you, our friends at the house of the Lord, and the day when the pews in your church are speckled with Jewish faces. Lord, may you prepare us and prepare our congregations and all of our spaces to be just that type of sanctuary.
Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Ve'asuli mikdash v'shakanati betacham ve'anachnu nivarech yah ve'ad olam. Sing along with me. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
We invite you to stand now as we open our ark and begin to conclude our service with the words of Aleinu, a prayer of peoplehood, page 282 in our prayer books and 285.
Aleinu l'shabech ladon hakol, latekedu la'liotzer breshit, shelo asenu kogu yeharatzot, velo samanu kamishpechot adama, shelo samchalkenu kahem v'gor aleinu chachamonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh, baruch hu.
L'takein olam b'malchut Shaddai, Adonai our God, how soon we hope to behold the perfection of our world, guided by a sacred covenant drawn from human and divine meeting.
V'nemar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz, hayom hahu bayom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
Take a moment now to turn to those that we've lost in our world. As we think about those that we've lost recently and those that we've lost at this time in seasons past, we offer these words. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. So look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. This week, we think of those that we've recently lost in this last month: Betty Cracker, Marcia Gitterman, Hope Fromson, Paula Nuringer, and Sarah Ash. And we add to their names: Jean Bober, Molly Bronstein, Phyllis Berman, Rosalind Emanuel, Moses First, Sophie Guerin, Ruth M. Harris, Max Kantrovitz, Ann Kovar, Simon Kloner, Cecilia Kondritzer, Cyril Krongold, Max Levine, Julius Lubin, Robert B. Meerman, Jacob Pollock, Trudy Pollock, Saul Schachter, Manny Schlitt, Marcia K. Sensor, Shmuel Schneider, J. William Shulin, Isabel Solomon, Dr. E. William Spitz, Edward Stern, Harry Waldman, Arnold Weinstein, and Margaret P. Zipper. If there are names that you're remembering, people from your lives who you would like to mention in this moment, we encourage you to share their names aloud as we rise, page 294, and share these words. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, V'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich Malchutei, B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, Bagala uv'izman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei almaya, Yit barak v'yishtabach v'yit ba'ar v'yit romam v'yit naseh, v'yit adar v'yit alev v'yit halal Shemei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to all of those who are in mourning in this moment, as we say, Amen. Having connected with those that we've loved and lost, we reach out and connect with each other, those who are in the room with us, those who are in the virtual room with us, as we find our way to bless each other with these words first given by the priests to the people of Israel. May God bless you and keep you. May God's presence be with you and be gracious unto you. May you know God's love. May you share it with those like you, those new to you, and those you don't yet know their story. And may we find in that presence the presence of God and the presence of peace, as we say.
Amen.
We turn to bless our wine and our bread in this moment as we get ready to begin our meal. We invite Steve Sweedler to share the blessing, lead us in the blessing, Kiddush and Motzi, over sanctifying this evening with a glass of wine and beginning our meal with the bread.
The prayer over the wine. Praise you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratza banu. B'Shabbat kadsha b'ahava v'ratzon hinkilanu, zikaron l'matzei bereshit. Ki hu yom tehillah b'lemikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziot Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'harta, v'yotanu kidashta, mikol hamim, v'shabbat kadshecha, b'ava uvratzon, hinkaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen. And now the Hamotzi. Our praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth and carbs. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Good Shabbos, everyone.
Thank you, Steve. I don't know if God intended us to bless carbs, but we really appreciate that you added to the carbs even more than they already have additives in them. A couple quick announcements. Our Ethical Wills class continues. If you did not join the first class, you are still welcome to join. Hopefully, also, you notice the Sisterhood is doing this wonderful card-making program. Hopefully you already picked up your supplies. If not, if you have your own supplies, the program is this Sunday at 1 p.m. You can check our weekly email. And hopefully you picked up on this earlier in the service, but Shared Legacies, the African American Jewish Civil Rights experience, begins now and continues for the next 4 weeks. We hope you will watch the film. It is truly, I watched the film, it's a wonderful film. And remember that you need to watch it in that 72-hour window, and you need to register. So please follow all the instructions to do those things, and we hope that you will join us for the future programs we have together as our two congregations come to know each other even during these distanced times. We'll close with the words of Olam Chesed Yibaneh. May we build a world that is filled with love and filled with peace. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. 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 I will build this world from love. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. You must build this world from love. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. If we build this world from love, yadadai, 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 then God will build this world from love. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. Shabbat Shalom.